Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. You are here for another read aloud, and today I'm reading a very special book. It's special for a few reasons, and the one reason that I want to share with you why I picked this book is because it's like a really cool mashup. So it's fiction, it's a fiction book, but it's inspired by the life of a real person, okay? This book is called Me and Uncle Romie. And when you go to the back of this book, you can see, put it under here, there's an author's note that gives a background of the story of the person that really inspired this fiction story. So, Uncle Romie, who's this person in the book, is actually a real artist named Romare Bearden. And he was born in 1911, and he spent his early childhood in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then his family moved to Harlem in New York City in the 1920s. And this was a time called the Harlem Renaissance, and it's when a lot of African American writers, musicians, and artists were working and living in Harlem, and they were making art that was inspired by that little part of the world. And there were so many beautiful things that came out of that time. And in this author's note, you can see some of Romare Bearden's collages. He made collages, which we'll see in the story. So this is actually his real stuff. The things in the picture book in the story are not really his things, just inspired by. Anyway, it's a really amazing story. The way that the author took the life of a real person and then put this fictional twist on it to help kids and all people learn more about this amazing artist, Romare Bearden. Okay, now, before I start, I always make sure I have my tools. I have my handy dandy reader's notebook. I also need to keep some sticky notes on hand. And a pen for you will do just fine. I have a marker so it shows up nice and thick. And I have my book. So there I am, ready to go with everything. Today I'm going to do something, a little something special. Speaking of a mashup, like the author mashed up fiction and nonfiction, fiction and biography, I am going to mash up a read aloud with some math, okay? So this is a really cool thing that I learned when I did a seminar with my friend, Mr. Tom McLean. He's a high school teacher, and he taught me this way to track emotions throughout a story using a line plot. No, a line graph. So we need to first create our line graph. And I'm doing it like maybe how you might do it, because I don't actually even have a ruler, so I'm just using this pen. See? And so I'm making a little graph here. Okay. And if I was in the classroom, if we were all in the classroom together, we would brainstorm some emotions. Starting from the bottom emotion would be like very unhappy, that's sad. And the top would be like, wow, super ecstatic. Ah. And then we would go through and list out some emotions that we might put in the middle. But since it's just me here, I'm just going to write some emotions. But you can think of them too. So at the bottom, I would put depressed, like just sadder than sad, right? Depressed would be the bottom emotion there. Then next I might put like maybe just like sad, worried, because that kind of makes me, that's kind of the next thing up on the emotions as we move up towards super happy. Then I might put nervous, scared. Those kind of seem like they would be close together. Scared. Then as we go up, maybe I would just put a little sad. What's a little sad? Just like meh. I'll actually just write meh. Right? That's kind of a feeling of like, it's not amazing, not bad. Then as we go up, I might put just like even, like a neutral feeling. So here's our middle, kind of. And that's like a neutral feeling. It's not great, not bad. Then as we go up, we'll put maybe calm. Right? Calm is a feeling of like not crazy, happy, but it's not a bad feeling. It's kind of on the positive side of feeling. So calm would be the next step up towards feeling really good. As we move up this ladder, I might then put happy. That's kind of just an all right, happy emotion. Then I might put excited. Ooh, excited. Right? So as we move up, excited is like a much better feeling. Then I might put like ecstatic. Ecstatic, because that's like the next feeling of being really happy. And then I might put like, what's the best feeling that you can even think of? Over the moon, amazed. You all, I'm sure, are thinking at home like, I have so many better words, and I'm sure you do. And I wish we were doing this together in a classroom, but this is what we have. We'll make it work. Okay, so as we meet this character, this main character, who in the title is known as Me, we will see him go on a journey. And we're going to track that journey in this chart, okay, in this graph. So let's get started. Me and Uncle Romie by Claire Hartfield and pictures by Jerome Lagargue. Lagargue? It was the summer that Mama had the twins that I first met my uncle. The doctor had told Mama she had to stay off her feet till the babies got born. Daddy thought it was a good time for me to visit Uncle Romie and his wife, Aunt Nanette, up north in New York City. But I wasn't so sure. Mama had told me that Uncle Romie was some kind of artist, and he didn't have any kids. I'd seen his picture too. He looked scary. A bald-headed, fierce-eyed giant. No, I wasn't sure about this visit at all. So let's think. How's the character feeling in this exact moment? I'd say he's pretty worried. Maybe worried or scared. I don't think he's all the way down at depressed, but I would say he's probably, we'll mark it here. He's worried. Right now he's worried. The day before I left home was a regular North Carolina summer day. A good train watching day, my friend BJ said. We waited quietly in the grass beside the tracks. BJ heard it first. It's a-comin', he said. Then I heard it too. A low rumbling, building to a roar. Woo, woo! The Piedmont, we shouted as the train blasted past. I'm the greatest train watcher ever, BJ boasted. Yeah, I answered, but tomorrow I'll be riding the train. I'm the lucky one. Lucky, I thought as we headed home. Maybe. That evening, I packed my suitcases. Voices drifted up from the porch below. Romie's got a big art show coming up, Mama said quietly. I hope he's not too busy for James, especially on his birthday. Romie's a good man, Daddy replied, and Nanette'll be there too. The light faded. Mama called me into her bedroom. "Where's my goodnight kiss?" she said. I curled up next to her. "I'll miss the way you make my birthday special, Mama. Your lemon cake and the baseball game." "Well," Mama sighed, "it won't be those things, but Uncle Romie and Aunt Nanette are family, and they love you too. It'll still be a good birthday, honey." Mama pulled me close. Her voice sang soft and low. Later, in my own bed, I listened as crickets began their song and continued into the night. So let's go back to this chart. In the beginning, we learned that he was feeling kind of worried about going up to New York and meeting Uncle Romie and Aunt Nanette. Now, as we move a little farther in the book, put a little tick here. How is he feeling at this moment? I'd say he's still feeling pretty worried. Maybe scared at this moment. I'll put a little mark kind of in between. It's kind of maybe in the middle between worried and scared. He's worried a little bit about his birthday, I'm noticing. The next morning, I hugged Mama goodbye. Daddy and I headed for the train. He got me seated and then stood waving at me from outside. I held tight to the jar of pepper jelly Mama had given me for Uncle Romie. "All aboard!" The conductor's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. The train pulled away. Chugga, 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 chug. I watched my town move past my window. Bright-colored houses, chickens strutting across the yard, flowers everywhere. After a while, I felt hungry. Daddy had packed me a lunch and a dinner to eat one at a time. I ate almost everything at once. Then my belly felt tight, and I was kind of sleepy. I closed my eyes and dreamed about Mama and Daddy getting ready for those babies. Would they even miss me? Later, I woke up. I ate the last bit of my dinner and thought about my birthday. Would they make my lemon cake and take me to a baseball game in New York? So I'm kind of noticing a pattern here where he's really stressing about this birthday. He has these things that he's kind of attached to, the lemon cake and the baseball game on his birthday. And he's feeling worried that when he goes to New York, he's not going to get those things. In my head, I'm kind of wondering, is the lemon cake and the baseball game actually like meaning something else? Like maybe he's not going to miss the cake and the game. Maybe it's something else that he's really going to miss. So I'm going to write a sticky note, and I'm going to make my code. I'm going to put a Q for question. I'm going to say, is he really worried about the cake and game, or is it something else? We know readers ask questions as they go along in a book, and it's a great way to keep track of them by using a sticky note. The sky turned from dark blue to black. I was getting sleepy all over again. "We're almost there, son," the man next to me said. Then I saw it. New York City. Buildings stretching up to the sky, so close together. Not like North Carolina at all. "Penn Station, watch your step," the conductor said, helping me down from the platform. I did like Daddy said and found a spot for myself close to the train. Swarms of people rushed by. Soon I heard a silvery voice calling my name. This had to be Aunt Nanette. I turned and saw her big smile reaching out to welcome me. She took my hand and guided me through the rushing crowd onto an underground train called the subway. "This will take us right home," she explained. Home was nothing like I'd ever seen before. No regular houses anywhere, just big buildings and stores of all kinds. In the windows, I saw paints, fabrics, radios, and TVs. We turned into the corner building and climbed the stairs to the apartment, 5 whole flights up. Whew! I tried to catch my breath. while Aunt Nanette flicked on the lights. So I'm just having a thought here that I'm noticing that like this new setting is so different than what he was used to back in North Carolina. So I'm seeing that the settings, the difference there, I'm wondering if that's going to cause him to feel any certain ways because it's such a different place. That's just a thought that I'm having. Uncle Romie's out talking to some people about his big art show that's coming up. He'll be home soon, Aunt Nanette said. She set some milk and a plate of cookies for me on the table. Your uncle's working very hard, so we won't see much of him for a while. His workroom, we call it his studio, is in front of our apartment. That's where he keeps all the things he needs to make his art. Doesn't he just paint? I asked. Uncle Romie is a collage artist, Nanette explained. He uses paints, yes, but also photographs, newspapers, cloth. He cuts and pastes them onto a board and he makes his paintings. That sounds kind of easy, I said. Nanette laughed. Well, there's a little more to it than that, James. When you see the paintings, you'll understand. Come, let's get you to bed. Lying in the dark, I heard heavy footsteps in the hall. A giant stared at me from the doorway. Hello there, James. Uncle Romie's voice was deep and loud like thunder. Thanks for the pepper jelly, he boomed. You have a good sleep now. Then he disappeared down the hall. Okay, what are you thinking about this first meeting of Uncle Romie? We've been hearing a lot about him. James, the main character, has kind of been worrying a little bit about him. And now he finally meets him for the first time. How do you think James is feeling right now after that first meeting? In my opinion, which yours might be different, and that's okay, I feel like he's maybe kind of moving more toward this meh feeling of like, he's not so scared, he's there, he's like, it's okay, everything worked out all right, I got there okay. So his emotional state seems to be increasing in a more positive way. But we'll see how that continued. The next morning, the door to Uncle Romie's studio was closed, but Aunt Nanette had plans for both of us. Today we're going to a neighborhood called Harlem, she said. It's where Uncle Romie lived as a boy. Harlem was full of people, walking, working, shopping, eating. Some were watching the goings-on from fire escapes. Others were just sitting on stoops, greeting folks who passed by, just like the people back home calling out hellos from their front porches. Most everybody seemed to know Aunt Nanette, and a lot of them asked after Uncle Romie, too. We bought peaches at the market, and then stopped to visit a while. I watched kids playing stickball. Go on, get in that game, Aunt Nanette said, gently pushing me over to join them. When I was all hot and sweaty, we cooled off with double chocolate scoops from the ice cream man. Later, we shared some barbecue on a rooftop way up high. I felt like I was on top of the world. So, let's think. On his emotional journey, which way is he going? He was scared, he was nervous, but now I think he's gone all the way up and he is feeling pretty happy. He got to play some baseball. So I'm going to find that here. Yeah. As the days went by, Aunt Nanette took me all over the city. We rode a ferry boat to the Statue of Liberty, zoomed 102 floors up the Empire State Building, window shopped at the fancy stores on Fifth Avenue, gobbled hot dogs in Central Park. But it was Harlem that I liked best. I played stickball with the kids again, and on really hot days, a whole bunch of us ran through the icy cold water that sprayed out hard from the fire hydrant. In the evenings, Aunt Nanette and I sat outside, listening to the street musicians playing their saxophone songs. On rainy days, I wrote postcards and helped out around the apartment. I told Aunt Nanette about things I liked to do back home, about baseball games, train watching, my birthday. She told me about the special Caribbean lemon and mango cake she was going to make. My Uncle Romie stayed hidden away in his studio, but I wasn't worried anymore. Aunt Nanette would make my birthday special. 4, 3, 2, 1. My birthday was almost here. I'm noticing a character change. So, he was, oh, I put this in the wrong line. Whoops. It's okay. We all make mistakes. Okay, so he was feeling pretty happy once he noticed that like everything was working out. He played stickball, and now he's like, my birthday's going to be good. I'm going to get a special cake. Everything's going to be wonderful. Do you think he's excited? Do you think he's ecstatic? Do you think he's over the moon amazed? I think he's feeling pretty good. I'm going to go ecstatic. Like his emotions has turned around. They were bad, now they're good. So here I'm going to line this up the way we do in a graph, and we will continue. And then Aunt Nanette got a phone call. An old aunt has died, James. I have to go away for her funeral, but don't you worry. Uncle Romie will spend your birthday with you. It will be just fine. That night, Aunt Nanette kissed me goodbye. I knew it would not be fine at all. Uncle Romie didn't know about cakes or baseball games or anything except his dumb old paintings. My birthday was ruined. When the sky turned black, I tucked myself into bed. I missed Mama and Daddy so much. I listened to the birds on the rooftop. Their songs continued into the night. Uh-oh. I'm noticing another character change. Sometimes when you go high, it comes back down and goes low. How's he feeling now? I think depressed. I think this is the saddest he's been throughout the whole story. The next morning, everything was quiet. I crept out of bed and into the hall. For the first time, the door to Uncle Romie's studio stood wide open. What a glorious mess. There were paints and scraps all over the floor, and around the edges were huge paintings with all sorts of pieces of paper pasted together. I saw the saxophones, birds, fire escapes, and brown faces. It's Harlem, I thought. The people, the music, the rooftops, and the stoops. Looking at Uncle Romie's paintings, I could feel Harlem, its beat, its bounce. Is he still depressed? Let's move it up a little bit. I think he's feeling a little bit more meh, right? I don't think he's very happy yet, but it's getting better. Then there was one that was different. Smaller houses, flowers, and trains. That's home, I shouted. Yup, Uncle Romie said, smiling from the doorway. That's the Carolina I remember. Mama says, you visited your grandparents there almost every summer when you were a kid, I said. I sure did, James. Now that's the place for pepper jelly, smeared thick on biscuits. And when Grandma wasn't looking, I'd sneak some with a spoon. Daddy and I do that too, I told him. We laughed together and then walked to the kitchen for a breakfast feast. Bacon, eggs, grits, and biscuits. James, you've got me remembering the pepper jelly lady. People used to line up down the block to buy her preserves. Could you put someone like that in one of your paintings? I asked. I guess I could. Uncle Romie nodded. Yeah, that's a memory just right for sharing. What a good idea, James. Now, let's get this birthday going. He brought out 2 presents from home. I tore into the packages while he got down the pepper jelly in 2 huge spoons. Mama and Daddy had picked out just what I wanted. A special case for my baseball cards and a model train for me to build. Pretty cool, said Uncle Romie. I used to watch the trains down in North Carolina, you know. How funny to picture big Uncle Romie lying on his belly. BJ and me, we have a contest to see who can hear the trains first. Hey, I did that too. You know, it's a funny thing, James. People live in all sorts of different places and families, but the things we care about are pretty much the same, like favorite foods, special songs, games, stories, and like birthdays. Uncle Romie held up 2 tickets to the baseball game. Okay, so his emotions have to be changing. He's really getting on well with his uncle. He was worried, he was sad, but he must be really excited, maybe even ecstatic. He's going to go to the baseball game. So I'm going to line this up, find ecstatic. Here we go. Let's see how it ends. It turns out Uncle Romie knows all about baseball. He was even a star pitcher in college. We got our mitts and set off for the game. Way up in the bleachers, we shared a bag of peanuts, cracking the shells with our teeth and keeping our mitts ready in case a home run ball came our way. That didn't happen, but we sure had fun. Aunt Nanette came home that night. She lit the candles and we all shared my Caribbean birthday cake. After that, Uncle Romie had to work a lot again, but at the end of each day, he let me sit with him in his studio and talk. Daddy was right. Uncle Romie is a good man. The day of the big art show finally came. I watched the people laughing and talking, walking slowly around the room from painting to painting. I walked around myself, listening to conversations. Remember our first train ride from Chicago to New York? One lady asked her husband. That guitar-playing man reminds me of my Uncle Joe, said another. All these strangers talking to each other about their families and friends and special times, and all because of how my Uncle Romie's paintings reminded them of these things. It seems to me he's realizing why his Uncle Romie's paintings are so special. I'm going to make a note about that. This is a special thought I'm having. It seems like James is noticing how special Uncle Romie's, I'm going to use shorthand, Uncle Romie's paintings are to people. It's important to check our thinking. Okay, later in the night, Daddy called. I have a brand new brother and sister. Daddy said they were both bald and made lots of noise. But he sounded pretty happy, and they said they all missed me. This time, Nanette and Uncle Romie took me to the train station. Here's a late birthday present for you, James, Uncle Romie said, holding out a package. Open it on the train, why don't you? It'll help pass the time on the long ride home. I waved out the window to Uncle Romie and Aunt Nanette until I couldn't see them anymore. Then I ripped off the wrappings. And there was my summer in New York. Bright sky in one corner, city lights at another, tall buildings, baseball ticket stubs, the label from the pepper jelly jar, and trains, one going toward the skyscrapers and another going away. Back home, I lay in the soft North Carolina grass. It was the 1st of September, almost Uncle Romie's birthday. I watched the birds streak across the sky. Rooftop birds, I thought. Back home from their summer in New York, just like me. Watching them, I could still feel the city's beat inside my head. A feather drifted down from the sky. In the garden, tiger lilies bent in the wind. Uncle Romie's favorite flowers. I yanked off a few blossoms, and then I was off on a treasure hunt, collecting things that reminded me of Uncle Romie. I painted and pasted them together on a big piece of cardboard. Right in the middle, I put the train schedule, and at the top I wrote, Happy birthday, Uncle Romie. Let's check in. How's James, our main character, feeling now at the end of this story? I think he's feeling pretty calm. It seems as though he went through a lot of emotions on this story, and now when we connect these X's, let's see if I can do this kind of quickly. doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just doing the best I can. Now we can think about and look at these emotions in kind of an interesting way rather than just taking notes. So if we look at our chart, we can see that the story started kind of sad, right? And then he got really happy, and then his aunt left, and he just got really sad and depressed again. But then at the end of the story, it turned out all right. And by the very end, he was just kind of calm again. What a great story. Again, this is called Me and Uncle Romie by Claire Hartfield, a fictional story inspired by the artwork of Romar Bearden. Thanks for listening.